Hi and welcome to another edition of TEMA Talk, the fast-paced, BS-free zone with smart, fun and educational conversations with entrepreneurs and business owners who've all come together to share their stories and insight designed to help others, that's you, succeed. All right, every time I start this show, I seem to say, and we have a very special guest today. And I truly, truly mean it, because they're all special and they're all special in a different way. And what makes them special is one common denominator in my eyes, and that is they've all shared their experiences to help others succeed. And our guest today, well, he got up one morning on January the 15th in 2009, and it's a day he's never going to forget. And a lot of us, when I get to the end of this little intro, will remember it. And he made his way to LaGuardia Airport, as we all, through the traffic and all that sort of stuff. And he boarded US Airways flight 1549 and bottled himself into seat 15A. And it's just a normal day, right? He's just another air traveling commuter. Within minutes of the flight taking off, the engines are hit by a flock of geese, forcing the plane to make an emergency landing in the Hudson River. And the rest, as they say, became history, because that flight became known as the Miracle on the Hudson. And our guest today, Dave Sanderson, was the last civilian off that flight because he put others before himself. Whether he knew about that, whether he consciously did it, we don't know, but we're going to find out this morning. That was clearly a life-changing moment for Dave. And since then, he's now regarded by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 speakers in the country. He's the author of 2 books, one of which is Moments Matter, and he's raised over $14 million for the Red Cross. So it is with great pleasure I welcome Dave Sanderson to the show. Hi, Dave. Good morning.
Carl, thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here with you today. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, Dave, walk us through it. You're a sales and security exec for Oracle. You get on the plane. It's just another day, right? You've looked at that crossword that somebody else has filled in the airline magazine. It's just a day, right?
Nothing extraordinary, right? Exactly. It's just another typical day, trying to get home a little bit early because I've been traveling for 3 days. And, you get on the plane, all of a sudden it's put your head down and I'm going to do my thing. And all of a sudden about 60, 70 seconds later, you hear a big loud crash. It's like, I don't know what happened, but look out the window and then you see that you see fire coming off beneath the left wing. So, okay, something happened, but you still don't know what happened yet because, you feel like the plane banking. So it's like no big deal going back to the airport. But that's when things started to change, I think, not only for me, for everybody on that plane that day.
And then you heard those immortal words, right? Brace for impact.
Yeah, the captain said his famous words, "This is your captain, brace for impact." And that was the only thing that you heard the entire time on the plane. People are a little crazy. No. And I really attribute that to a lot of business lessons on this. And one of the business lessons is the passenger makeup of that plane had a lot to do with how that whole situation played out. And what do I mean by that? Yeah. Well, I actually had the opportunity several years, probably about 9 years ago now, to speak with a captain when I was in Orlando, Florida. And he knew who I was, so we had a conversation. And he shared something with me. It really enlightened me. And he said, if I could do what the captain did here in Florida, say I had to ditch the plane in the Lake Okeechobee, had to do it. Right. It wouldn't be a totally different outcome. I said, why? He said, because of the passenger makeup. Because the passenger makeup of a plane coming out of Orlando is 180 degrees different than the passenger makeup coming out of New York. So the passenger makeup out of Orlando, as you probably know, you've probably flown out of Orlando, is usually families and kids, less business people. Yeah. And out of New York, it's totally opposite. It's usually about 90% business people who usually are business focused and make decisions quickly, can act. So I tell people one of the great lessons out of this is about business, is about the teamwork mentality of people to be able to make decisions quickly and act upon them quickly.
Right. So what's it like? I mean, what goes through your head when you hear those words, brace for impact? I mean, is it like, this is it, it's all over? I mean, what goes through your head?
Well, fortunately for me, on the training that I had, I went into sort of, blueprint mode. What am I going to? What's my game plan now? What do I have to do? I used to have a chance to survive. And so I did listen intently, right? I mean, I got the thing out, I tried to figure out how to brace. But my game plan was, if we could get down, if I could survive it, how am I going to get out? So candidly, and a lot of the people I talked to on the plane, Carl, had a sort of similar mindset. It's like, okay, what's my game plan if I survive? Because up to that point, you don't have much control except for your mind. You can control your mind, but you really can't control circumstances.
Right.
But once you're down, you can control circumstances. So I think it was 2 different events. The captain and the crew get all the credit for getting it down. He did a fabulous job that day. I'll be forever grateful. But once it was down, it was a game. It was a team play.
Right. So I understand that a little bit, but surely a little bit of self-preservation kicks in. I'm not, I'm not trying to sort of belittle or underplay the absolutely enormity of this event. I mean, it's just clearly life-changing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting there right now. But we've all got a little bit of self-preservation in it, right? We all hear like when you're on a boat, women and children first. Like, get out the way. I'm getting out of here, right? But you helped others first. Why? How did that kick in? How did that manifest itself?
Well, that's interesting you say that, Carl, because one of the first interviews I had while I was in the hospital was from a TV channel in Philadelphia, who asked me that question: was it really women and children first? And the answer was no, it wasn't. And it was amazing. All of a sudden, I had people who was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, the person who got the door out on the right side was a male, and he got it out, and he went out to help people get out on the wing. He's the one who led the people on the wing." So yes, I mean, you get these situations, self-preservation is definitely something you go through your head, but it really was women and children first. But for me, what happened was my game plan was aisle up out. I mean, that was my game plan. Because I try to do things, Carl, in business and make chunking things down in threes. I can remember threes. Aisle up out. That's sort of when. So when I got to the aisle, my game plan was just to get out. But all of a sudden, I heard my mom start talking to me. And my mom passed away in 1997. But something she said in my head at that moment was, if you do the right thing, God will take care of you. And after I thought about that, Carl, for a few years, I'm like, my mother didn't say do the right thing. She said, if you do the right thing. She made me make a choice. And I think that's one of the greatest lessons my mother and my father taught me, is make me make decisions early in life so I could make decisions later in life that could impact not only myself but somebody else. Because I had to make a decision. What's the right thing? Now, I could have gotten out immediately. That could have been the right thing for me. But I just said, the right thing for me was see if anybody else needed help. So I was alive. That's why I started climbing towards the seats, towards the back of the plane, and just to check it out. And everybody started getting, I got behind everybody because everybody started moving. So, but it was the interesting thing about the back of the plane, as you know, as a pilot, the plane, as you see that one picture from the front, it looks like it's level. But then you look at the back of the plane was about chest level deep water. So people were moving, but people was like, let's get out of here because this thing's going down. And that's how, all of a sudden I became the last passenger or civilian out, because the first light that I saw was on the right side of the plane. Like, okay, it's time for me to get out now. Nobody left, I'm going. But when I got to the doors, I was climbing out, I looked out. There was no room on that wing or that little lifeboat. And that's why I was in the plane for about 7 minutes, waist deep in 36-degree water, because there's no place for me to go. So, the self-preservation sort of came in spurts. First was like, I had to make a decision, made a different decision. Now I have to get out. I can't get out. So now what do I do next? And so my game was I had leverage. So I held on to the plane because I had leverage with my left arm. So at least I was going to hold on to the plane. But then people were yelling at me, hold on, hold on. I didn't know what they meant initially. But then I realized that little lifeboat was floating out into the river because of the current. Now, you've been in New York, and many of the people, that current's fast. So that boat was floating out. So the reason they were able to hold on is I was holding on to the lifeboat so they could have an exit path out to the wing to get out. So that's why this picture was all of a sudden I saw in Good Morning America. It was me holding on the lifeboat. And all of a sudden I'm going, I didn't remember that initially. I'm like, you were just in go mode, right? You're just in go mode. But all of a sudden I'm thinking, wow. it's amazing how your mind makes decisions when you're in those situations. You have to make a decision and execute. And that's one of the things we talk about, as you know, Carl, about leadership. It's the ability to have that focused execution. You know, that's how great leaders do it. They have focused execution. They wrap it with gratitude, though. They have gratitude for everything that they have. So that's what happened to me. And that's why it was self-preservation, but, there's other things going on.
Right. So, Dave, I started at the top of the show saying, very, very successful executive with Oracle. Thank goodness there wasn't a single fatality after the Miracle on the Hudson, which is probably why it was called the Miracle on the Hudson, which is a very rare thing in any plane accident, right? So literally everybody walked away alive. But you decided to take a different course. You didn't sort of go home, recuperate, and get over it, and then go back to the office. You decided that your life was going to take a completely different path, and you were going to start, talking to people, be a public speaker, share your experiences, write a book. Why? Why did that happen?
Candidly, Carl, wasn't the game plan, because the backstory, I think I've shared this with you in the past, is I got back and at that point, my manager asked me to go back to work the next week. This was a Thursday. He asked me if I was going to Michigan the next week on another call. And I made the decision, you got to remember, now you put things in proper perspective. This is 2009. Business was pretty tough.
Right.
And I had the biggest thing going, right?
Right.
So I said, I will go. And that was, I think it was the right decision, but I look back, it's like, why did I make that decision, right? But I made the decision. So I just got back on the boat. But that next weekend, I had the opportunity to speak for the first time because I was invited by my church to speak to the men's breakfast. And candidly, Carl, and I didn't take it too seriously. It's like, 50 old guys, they eat pancakes, right? I'll get up, share a little bit, have some pancakes, have a good day. And all of a sudden they invite, they put it out for invitation through the community, and 500-600 people show up. And to come hear me, and they put it in a different place, and they rent out pancakes and have angry people. And it's like, now what do I do, right? I've never spoken to this many people. And that sort of set me on a different pathway, because all of a sudden I all of a sudden realized after that experience that I impacted people.
Right.
And a lot of people never, even though I think there's miracles happening every moment, even through all the situations in the world, I think when people actually see a miracle and they can actually get close to a miracle, it does something to them. And I think, that's what happened to me that day, is that so many people connecting with me and set me on a different pathway and say, I got to do this. And all of a sudden I started impacting people around the world, and that's how you and I got to meet. And I'm very blessed to be able to do it. But I'm still, I still got to make money and do things for my family. So I had to go into business mode likewise.
Right.
Yeah.
You still got to put food on the work. What is it? Death and taxes. They're the only two things that are certain, right?
4 kids going to college. Things add up.
Yeah. So, Dave, I'm sure you won't mind me saying we wouldn't wish what the experience that you went through on anybody. Nobody wants to see airplanes fall out of the sky and all that kind of stuff. But everybody's had defining moments in their life. We can all remember it. Some of us can remember, when Kennedy got shot. I will never forget Winston Churchill's funeral. It's indelibly in my head. For some Americans, like I said, it's the Kennedy thing. For me, it's Winston Churchill's funeral. We had the man landing on the moon. We had 9/11, and we've had the coronavirus pandemic. It's how people approach those things. They're major milestones in their life. What kind of mindset do they need to either overcome those milestones in their life, and B, take advantage of them to say, this is a changing, defining moment in my life, and therefore I'm going to leverage it by doing whatever?
Great question. And I'll just take you back to something that happened to me about 6 or 7 years ago that helped me understand what that defining moment mindset was like, and why things happen, and how people right now especially can be helped. And the backstory is where I'm sitting right now today talking to you. My wife called me. I had neighbors who needed some help. They're all 2 older ladies. No big deal, right? You're going to help your neighbors, right?
Yeah.
No big deal. Go down, help them get your TV on. They ask if I stay for milk and cookies. And I don't know about you, Carl. I love milk and cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them.
Afraid
Especially
so.
older ladies who could probably bake. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we all have this little thing going out down a little lower, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm here waiting for milk and cookies from lovely ladies, flipping through the books, and they had books on their table about World War II. And I love World War II history. I just love learning about it. So when they come back out, I said, hey, where did you get these? These are great books. Where did you get them? All of a sudden, they rolled up their sleeves and showed me the numbers down their arm. Yeah. And they survived a concentration camp together. And I sat there blown away. I'm like, I'm actually sitting across from two people who survived a concentration camp. I said, please tell me the story. Let me record the story. They were in their 70s then. They said, no, but we'll tell you the story. For 2 hours, Carl, they told me the story. They lost their entire family, and that's why they stayed together the rest of their lives. And I came back to my office where I'm sitting there going, these ladies survived one of the most unbelievable circumstances, horrific in the history of the world, and they survived. What's that mindset, right? Yeah. What takes that mindset? And all of a sudden, after listening to their stories about all the moments in their life sort of added up, and that's the mindset they came out with. That's how the book Moments Matter came about. Because it's like, I'm sitting there saying all these things that happened that day during the crisis, I call it a crisis, that moment. All of us have these defining moments. And it's like, the meaning you attach to that defining moment determines the outcome, determines your emotions. And emotions determine how you handle your life. So some people have crappy meanings. Some people right now, I would say, have a uncertain meaning, right? They don't know what's going on. They have to be in control, so they're uncertain. So the key to that is you have to reframe the meaning. Ask a different level of question. What if I could do this? How would I do it? And great business people, as you know, great entrepreneurs ask that question constantly. That's how these people are finding masks in places you never find masks right now. Because they ask a different level of question and change the meaning. Right. So the defining moment, you can have any defining moment. You can change the meaning of that defining moment and set it on a pathway of growth or set a pathway of the other direction.
Right. Isn't it also as well about perspective? I could have come home on January the 15th and said to Cheryl, oh, I had a bad day today, right? Really? Yep. You've had a bad day today? Did your airplane drop out of the sky? Oh, I've had a bad day today. Really? Did you spend X years in a concentration camp watching people on a daily basis being taken out and murdered? Right. It's all about perspective as well, isn't it?
I think you're spot on, because one of the things I talk and teach about now is that, and this is what came to me, and this is probably right before or after you and I first met. I was talking to a young lady in Canada, and she just survived the avalanche in Nepal. 4 people survived that avalanche. She was one of them. Yeah. And she wouldn't come out of this cabin. And so I got hooked up with, I was talking to her, and she wouldn't come out of this cabin. So I said, let's do this. Let me get you on the phone with somebody. Let's just have a conversation. And I connected somebody in Ethiopia. And I said, let's just talk to this young man in Ethiopia and talk about his day. He has no clothes. He has no food. He has nothing. And all of a sudden, that's exactly right. I try to put her in a different perspective. You survived, just like I survived. We have a different calling, a different meaning. You got to reframe this. So, yes, putting things into proper perspective, even today, is the right approach to take, because there's things that have happened, and in this world that happened worse than what's going on right now, right? And they've survived. I don't know about your dad. My dad lived through the Depression here in the United States. Right. And we had a discussion back after 9/11 when all stuff was breaking loose. He goes, have faith that you'll survive this. You'll get through it. You got to have the right mindset. It's like you have to have faith that you're going to get through it. Change the meaning. Right.
A lot of business owners tend to sort of, I won't say ignore what we've just been speaking about, but they don't give it much heed. They don't think of it. They just think it's one of those hip, trendy, psychobabble training. But it is all about the mindset. It just is about the mindset. And I believe that separates the mediocre, the good, the great, and the exceptional every time. The small mid-market business is 95% of our economy. But of those, there are loads of good businesses out there, but there are very few great businesses out there. And to me, whenever I come across a great business, it's all because of the leadership. It's great people, great products always play a part, absolutely. But inevitably, it's the great leadership. It's that visionary, inspirational leader. And frankly, it's always been my opinion that you could take that person, and if they're making ice cream over here and that's their business, I could take them out of that and put them over here to weld steel, and they would still have that same inspirational core leadership value, and they would take the welding team to just the great same heights of achievement as they did the ice cream company. Would you agree with that?
I agree. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to be around a great general by the name of Schwarzkopf, and he shared something with me back in 1999 that stuck with me to this day is how, because I asked him a question, I said, how did you win the war in Iraq so quickly, right? And he gave me a pat answer. And I said, may I ask you another question? He goes, no one usually asks a general second question. I mean, he was intense. Yeah. And he looked at me, he goes, but go ahead and ask it, how did you really win it, sir? And he said, no one's ever asked him the follow-up question. He said, I'll tell you how I won it. He said, every day I would go in the theater. They would come to me with problems. Women couldn't drive the tanks in Saudi Arabia. They had to cover their heads. They had to pray 5 times a day. Right. And I kept reminding of the troops, how does this contribute to kicking Saddam out of Kuwait? He said, all I did all day was remind people of the mission. And also I started thinking about it. It's like, yeah, he was so mission driven. No wonder he didn't go into Baghdad. I mean, that answered that question very quickly. But that taught me about leadership. As you're saying, great leaders always are on mission, right? They always are on mission and have that focus and vision that, you know what? And right now, yeah, if you can put me make ice cream, great. Next day I'll make metal parts for respirators. It doesn't matter. I'll figure it out because I'm resourceful. See, the 2 key tenets of leadership, of personal leadership, I believe, are being resourceful and being able to solve problems quickly. If you do those 2 things, great leaders come to the top.
Right. And it applies in every factor of life. Doctors, nurses, entrepreneurs, business owners. The difference between the good ones and the great ones and the exceptional ones is always the leadership. Right.
Yeah, and you just an interesting perspective because you go from excellent to outstanding. It's not that much difference. It's that 1 or 2 degree difference, right? But it's something. What is that something? And it's that mindset. It's that different mindset. Is I could be excellent. And I can make the the top line grow. I can make the bottom line grow. But what makes a truly outstanding company that's consistent, sustainable over time is that 1 or 2 degree difference of that mindset of, this is how we're going to do it. And this is a team effort. We're going to come to this a team. And you know what? We're going to be so resourceful right now. We're going to make it happen one way or another. And giving that certainty. People are looking for certainty on leaderships. The person with the most certainty in uncertain times becomes a leader.
Right. So, fabulous insights. Thank you for sharing. I want to switch gears a little bit now. I want to find out a little bit more about the other side of Dave Sanderson. I want to find a little bit more. We clearly I now know what motivates you and what drives you forward. But I want to just play around a little bit and dig a little bit deeper and ask some maybe a few fun questions. So let's start off with what's the best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
Is number 1, stay focused. Because there's a lot of times, and I'm going to be very candid, this is a no BS zone, right?
Yeah, a total
so one of the things that you really brought out, one of the things you brought out in me is my focus at that point was going 15 different directions. And it was my first entree into entrepreneurship. So I was really having trouble to focus in on what is really, truly important. And it took me a while, Carl, and you were one of the people that sort of brought me out of that mindset. It's like, you got to be focused. You got to focus on this niche. You got to focus this way. And I think that was one of the things that really started helping me grow instead of just sustaining. And now we're in a situation right now where, people say, well, how am I going to grow? People are growing massively right now. Right. And it's because they're staying focused in their lanes and their niche and doing and focusing, as you taught me, on the details.
Right. I'm going to ask you a question now, which you asked me. but it's never left me. You asked it me about 3 years ago, and it's just never left me. Does Dave Sanderson want to be in control, or does he want to be in charge?
That's a great question. I want to be in charge now. I'll be very honest. I would have said a different answer probably 8 or 9 years ago. I would have. I said, I want to control everything. Yeah. What you learn in life as the older we get, and you're a little probably, I think you and I are pretty close in age.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in life you can't control.
Yeah.
So I'd rather be in charge of what's going on. Great
Right.
question. Thank you for asking. No one's ever asked me that question back. Thank you.
All right.
No one's ever asked.
Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
I would probably say everything happens for a reason and a purpose, and it serves you. I say that all the time. I probably overuse it, so my family's like looking at me, yeah, right, Dad, right? But that's something that I overuse a lot. But I used to say awesome a lot, right? But I just say I got a mindset right now that everything does happen for a reason and a purpose, and so it's ingrained. It just comes out of me constantly.
Right. What do you think has been your biggest misstep or mistake that you've made since you've been an entrepreneur? That if you could dial the clock back, like, of all the things, like, what the hell was I thinking? Why did I do that? Never again.
I'll give you two because these two popped in my mind as soon as you asked me that question. Number one, and I definitely had some people in my life and business that I didn't evaluate correctly, who didn't have my best interest at heart. And second, and one of the things I thought about consistently is everybody needs that coach, right? Everybody needs that coach who can give them that guidance and put them on the right direction. And there are times, as you know this, I mean, sometimes you think, I can figure it out myself and, all this. I think everybody needs a coach. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I made is not having consistent coaching. You and I had this discussion years ago, and I look back on it, it's like it was an unbelievable experience. And I wish I had that consistent coach instead of stopping it, because that's sort of halted me. Then I had to start making decisions in a world that I wasn't ever involved in.
Right. Great answer. What other talent would Dave like to have?
I tell you, the one that I really want to have, and one thing I am going to get to, is learning how to sign language. All right. Because I think I've seen people who have total impact with people who can sign language and communicate in a different level. And I've had one experience I've had, Carl. And this happened to me about 2 years ago in Dallas, Texas. I had someone listening to me in sign language my talk, and it blew me away. And I look back on that, I'm like, what if I could just go up there just for a couple of seconds in sign language and connect with somebody I've never been able to connect with? That is the one skill that I put in my goal set. I'm going to get done. I'm going to figure out how to do it, because the next move for me is making an audio book, because I want to reach people who can't see, who can't do it. That's my next goal. But then the real major goal is how to sign language.
Good for you. What's your favorite quote?
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I think that's my favorite quote. And I go back to the Bible, but I really believe that. I can do, if I have belief in myself, I can do anything. And I don't take no for an answer.
Okay. Who's your favorite hero of fiction?
Captain America.
Okay. No surprises there.
Captain America.
No surprises there.
Yeah.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
Least favorite business word and most favorite business word?
Pivot. I'm so tired of hearing people say pivot. I mean, it's got to be, I think that's most overused word right now. People keep telling me I got to pivot. No, maybe I need to adjust a little bit. But, as you know, and you taught me, if you got that mission and focus, you just got to stay on it. And you fight through it. So I think pivot's like the word right now is sort of giving me this, like, listen, he's telling me that again, I'm probably just going to shut you down.
Right. We've got a lot of people maybe watching this show who are actually thinking of starting a business or in the early stages of a business. What's the one thing they should focus on? What's the number one thing that they should focus on in the early stages?
If I had to do this all over again, because I am doing it all over again right now, it's getting the processes set up before I begin. I jumped in because, as you know this, I was a very successful salesperson. So my mindset, Carl, then was I could drive revenue. But on the other side of the equation, I was letting things go that I had no clue on, and I got so behind in my finances that put me way behind. So the one coaching thing I always tell people, you want to go out and speak and start a speaking business like me, before you do it, let's get these processes set up. Because if you get in this and all of a sudden you don't have the process set up, this thing can crumble really quickly.
Right.
So that's what I would recommend to people.
What's Dave's idea of misery and Dave's idea of heaven?
Dave's idea of misery is sitting here doing Excel spreadsheets. That's misery for me. And I got nothing to do here. When we get done here, I got one to do now. I'm like, see you going, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? Right? Yeah. That is misery. But heaven for me, if I look at heaven, is like, when I am in front of somebody and I can impact their life with just something, and I see the light go on in their eyes, and this happened to me about 4 weeks ago on my last trip I took before all this happened, in coming through New Orleans. And Carl, this has happened to me probably every 1 or 2 months. It's happened to me when I'm walking through an airport and someone recognizes me out of the blue, and you don't know how they recognize you, you know who they are, but they come up and tell you something, how they met you or seen something about you, and how you've impacted their life. And that just blows me away. And I think that's when I am in nirvana. That's when I'm in the place where, I'm here for a reason and I made the right decisions, but now I'm impacting somebody else's life. And I think that to me is where I get the most joy. And, when that happens, I just crumble.
What a great place to finish. Dave, we've come to the end of another 30 minutes of business banter and badinage. Thank you so much to our guest, Dave Sanderson. I want to thank the team at Guerrilla Media for making this thing happen. I want to thank you for watching and listening. And don't forget to visit TEMA's Video Vault of Wisdom at thirdeyemanagement.com, where we share all the other TEMA Talks episodes, and they contain loads of strategies and tactics on how to grow your business. So until the next time, I want you to stay safe. I want you to stay happy. I want you to stay in touch, but most importantly, I want you to stay profitable. And with that, we're out.